Do I need a license to sell food in Florida? Well, the short answer to that is I'm going to give you 4 different things you need to be aware of before, and I'm going to tell you if you actually need a license to sell food in Florida here on Marketing Food Online 2, food entrepreneur channels for dedicated food entrepreneurs like you. All right, welcome back to Marketing Food Online 2. It is Damian Roberti. I am a CEO and founder with my wife of multiple e-commerce food businesses. I've been in the food industry for a little about 30 plus years. I've owned my own business for a little bit over 13 years now. And I have also multiple YouTube channels here all about food entrepreneurship. Definitely check out those links down below. But the question we got from a subscriber on our other YouTube channel was, do I need a license to sell food in Florida, Damian? And the short answer is yes. Now, if you plan to sell food in Florida, you generally need to obtain a license or permit from the appropriate regulatory authorities in your city or county, which can vary based on the type of food service operation you intend to run. Now, you got to keep this in mind. Then when I say selling food in Florida, it's pretty vague and pretty non-specific, right? So I'm going to break down the specific things you'll need to know, though, based upon the type of food business that you're going to have. Because you could talk about food trucks. You could talk about selling food from home under cottage food laws. You can open a commercial kitchen, maybe a restaurant, a brick and mortar cafe. So those are all different types of quote-unquote food businesses in Florida. So let's dive right into it. Number one, the type of food business is important. Let's dive into this. So you're going to also need a retail food establishment. This includes like grocery stores, markets, and convenience stores selling packaged food, right, directly to consumers. You would likely need a license from the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. That is what you would need for like a retail food establishment, as it's called. Next up, if you're looking for food service establishments, now this is a little bit different. Retail food establishments is one thing. Food service, meaning that you're going to be serving food like a restaurant, let's say. Food trucks, cafes, and even caterers fall under this category as well. But licenses for these operations are typically issued by the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation. That's going to be the department you're going to want to reach out to in order to get the license and permits needed for that. Because remember, this is a food service. So you'll be serving food as opposed to a retail food establishment, which is simply selling like packaged food products, okay? So nobody's really eating inside of a grocery store normally. They don't actually eat inside a grocery store, so that's a food service. It's different. Next up would be the home-based food operation. Now that would be under cottage food laws, okay? So Florida allows for the sale of certain types of quote-unquote cottage food products that are actually produced in a home kitchen. Now while a license may not be required actually for all types of cottage food sales, there are specific rules about what can be sold, though, and of course how much you can sell annually, and plus where that distribution, where you can sell it to. So that's something you want to keep in mind as well. Next up is number 2. This is a different category. So licensing requirements. Let's dive into that. So application. Now you will need to complete an application process that may include details about your food business, the type of food you plan to sell, and where you plan to sell it. Okay. Next would be in line with the licensing requirement, you're going to get inspections of some kind. So let's dive into what that means. Now, most food service establishments actually undergo basically what's known as a routine inspection to ensure compliance and health and safety regulations. That's normally the health department. Okay. Your facility may need to actually pass an inspection before you can receive your license and open up. Next is fees. Now, fees fall in line with licensing requirements as well. Now, there are fees, of course, associated with obtaining a food license, which can vary depending on the type and size of the food business itself in the state of Florida. All right, the third category, additional considerations. These are some extra things you want to think about depending on the type of food you want to sell. So food safety training. Some types of food businesses may require you or your employees to actually complete what's known as a food safety training and certification program. Local requirements. Now, this is kind of a city ordinance. This would fall in line with the city or local county. So in addition to state licensing, some municipalities in Florida may actually have their own requirements for food businesses. So it's important to check with your local city or county government to ensure that you comply with any local ordinances. All right, fourth, why it all matters. Obtaining these necessary licenses and adhering to state and local regulations, it's crucial, obviously, to operate legally, but you want to ensure that the safety of the food you're giving your patrons and protecting the public health. Now, failure to comply with these can result in fines or even business closures or other legal actions. So you definitely want to make sure that you stay on top of these permits and licenses and you have the right ones, okay? And number 5, lastly, getting started. So if you're planning to start a food business in Florida, your first step should be to determine the specific type of food operation you want to establish. Then you want to consult the relevant state department, okay? The department being, the Department of Agriculture or Health Department in the city for detailed guidance on the licensing process, the application, the fees, and any other requirements that might be required specifically for your type of food business. So it's not a really simple, easy question. Do I need a license to sell food in Florida? Question, because it depends on the type of food, depends on how you're serving it, depends on what the type of food business. So it's a lot of variables. But this is a good understanding to give you a good foundation to at least get started. So if you have questions and comments down below, let me know and check out these resources here.